My brother secretly had a crush on my wife and even brought my ex to our wedding to ruin it, so I told his pregnant girlfriend he was cheating on her. Please be patient as this will be a lengthy read. My younger brother, Jake, false name, is 25 years old and I am 27. As siblings, Jake and I have always been close, and I assumed our connection was quite typical. Perhaps I didn't realize what was happening. Or perhaps he was really skilled at concealing his actual feelings. My now wife Zara, 24F, and my ex-girlfriend Ruth, 27F, are also included in this story. Zara, Jake and I all attended the same school. I never really interacted with Zara because I was a few years older than them. I was acquainted with Jake and all of his pals, and we occasionally played together, but that was our only connection. Because our interests were so dissimilar, Jake and I began to drift apart by the time I was in my junior year. I didn't really push for a tight relationship with him because I assumed this was a normal part of growing up. We continued to get out from time to time, but we didn't exchange secrets. Boys don't really do that, so I wasn't too bothered by it either. The only significant aspect of this narrative is that Jake was hanging out with a few of his friends and their girlfriends, including Zara, just before I left for college. I want to clarify that nothing improper occurred before anyone calls me a weirdo or groomer for pursuing a 15-year-old. One of the children I met there inquired about my college location. Zara added that it was her ideal university when I told them, and I just said that she was more than welcome to ask for my assistance when she applied. That was it. She was the only person I interacted with at school. After that, I left for college and completely forgot about that little encounter because it didn't matter. I met Ruth in college. We clicked right away when we were classmates. I finally asked her out in my third year of college, though it took some time. We began dating after she said yes. Everything was wonderful in the beginning of the relationship. I felt like I truly understood her because we were going through comparable struggles and wished to live similar lives with one another. After graduating from college, I was able to secure a lucrative position, but Ruth was not as fortunate. We agreed to live together in order to save money, and I was more than happy to assist her. She was applying for jobs all over the place, but for some reason, she was never hired, even after she reached the interview stage. Even though I made enough money to support the two of us, it was still hard to save much because I was still in the early stages of my work, and I knew this was having a negative psychological impact on her. For more than a year, she continued to apply to various locations without success. She was devastated, and I did my best to be there for her. But shortly after, she realized that we could make ends meet with just my paycheck, so she gave up completely. At first, I welcomed the shift because I assumed she was simply worn out from applying and being turned down and that it was having a negative psychological impact on her. She followed my advice to take some time off and engage in enjoyable activities. For 3 or 4 months, this continued. She stopped complaining as much, became happier, experienced less stress, and her mental health significantly improved. I felt pleased for her. In the next few weeks, I hoped to gently encourage her to resume her job search. When I brought up the subject a month later, she reacted negatively, claiming that the thought of going through that terrifying experience once more made her cry. She said she would begin applying when she was ready and asked me not to bring it up again. I accepted since I believed her and didn't want to put undue pressure on her or come out as unsupportive. I was promoted and given a sizable raise 2 years after I started working. Now that I could at last start saving and doing the things I loved, I was ecstatic. I've had to put a lot of my aspirations on hold for the past 2 years in order to provide for 2 people with my paycheck. Naturally, Ruth's mental health issues and my personal interests took a backseat. Now that I had some money to spend on fun, I felt relaxed. However, Ruth began pleading with me to assist in paying for her niece's schooling as soon as she learned that I had been given a raise. Ruth's brother was impoverished and could only work for a few months at a time. He had gotten a lady pregnant and was clueless about how to raise a child, particularly after the woman died and left no family behind. Ruth's brother, who was completely unprepared to care for another human being, took the infant. Ruth pleaded with me, saying that even though she had only met her niece twice, she loved her and would never be able to forgive herself if she couldn't assist her. All of this was getting to be too much for me, so I told her I would give it some thought and ended the conversation. There was a part of me that honestly considered giving her the money, but there was also a nastier part of me that believed it was her niece and that she could get up and get work to support her. That night, I drank a lot, and as I continued to drink, all the logic and reason I had suppressed came flooding back. Since I was in love with Ruth, I never really gave the suspicion that she was attempting to take advantage of me any thought. I was unable to get rid of those emotions though. I was pleased to support her throughout her life, but it seemed excessive to ask me to support her niece as soon as I received a raise, especially at the expense of my own desires. Since I would be stuck in this situation for the rest of my life if I started supporting the niece now, I knew it was time to stand up for myself. I sat Ruth down the following day and informed her that, regardless of how regrettable the situation, I would not be providing financial support for her niece. Additionally, I told her that she was free to take a job and assist the poor child if she felt sorry for her. I didn't care what she did with the money. I refused to listen to her attempt to butt in, claiming that I was being unkind and that a poor youngster needed my assistance. I also informed her that the distribution of domestic duties would shift if she failed to find employment. If she wasn't making a financial contribution, I expected her to do 80% of the tasks because we didn't have any children or pets. I informed her that I wanted a vacation after working tirelessly for the past 2 years to support her while balancing work and home. She needed to help relieve some of my financial burden if she wasn't prepared to aid me financially so that I could have more money for myself. It would be an understatement to say that she began to yell. It was a miracle I didn't leave the conversation with my ears bleeding because I don't think I've ever had the bad experience of listening to such high decibels before. She called me every possible epithet during her lengthy tirade, including misogynistic, manipulative, gaslighting, and financially abusive. I simply needed a break though. If she couldn't do this for me, why were we even partners? The altercation continued for a while. She probably thought that because I've never been confrontational, I would give in. I didn't, which surprised her. For several more days we were at a standstill. She cut me off once more when I attempted to bring up the subject. I realized we were done at that point. I was merely supporting her life and receiving nothing in return, therefore there was no future for me in this relationship. It was a messy split. Because she was unemployed, she had nowhere to go. I informed her that I was done with her and that she should have her problems straightened out by then, but I was willing to give her some money to help her get by for a month or two. She broke down in tears, accusing me of faking and performing the whole drama act. I informed her that my decision was final and that I was no longer interested in this relationship. It could not be saved, and all the solutions she was now offering ought to have been presented to her while we were still together, not as a last resort. The split was nonetheless unpleasant even though I had set her up for a few months. I didn't understand how much dead weight I'd been carrying until she walked out. I could spend so much time and effort on myself. I resumed interests I had given up while in school. These pastimes allowed me to get back in touch with Zara. Zara chose to pursue painting as a career despite not attending my college. Even though it was somewhat of a covert pastime because it wasn't deemed masculine enough, I had always loved doodling as a child. I went since I was curious about the art show in my city. I discovered Zara there. We started chatting after she displayed a piece in the exhibition. I had broken up with Ruth a few months prior to this. When I asked Zara how things were doing, we struck up a conversation that we both found enjoyable. We agreed to get together once more, and she said she would notify me of any upcoming art events in the area. She did. After we reconnected, we gradually began to fall in love. I was already deeply in love with her when I finally asked her out a year later. When I tried to ask Jake about her, he told me that they hadn't spoken since she broke up with the guy from his school friend group. I won't go into all the specifics of my relationship with Zara because they aren't pertinent to this tale, but know that we have always been friendly and equal partners, and I knew she was the person I wanted to marry from a young age. Ruth made a few attempts to contact me during this time, but I always turned her down. Zara knew this every time it occurred, and she was confident enough to trust me. A year into our relationship, Zara and I were already considering marriage when I took her to supper with my family. That has never been a problem because my parents don't meddle in their children's private matters. Zara and my family got along well, and the supper was enjoyable. We were all discussing how amusing it was that life operates in weird ways and how my run-in with Zara again was entirely coincidental. At that point, Jake joked that he was shocked that his high school infatuation would end up becoming his sister-in-law. All those in attendance interpreted it as a light-hearted joke at the moment. Zara even claimed that the only person in their group who was even remotely engaging to converse with was Jake. I didn't give Jake's remark any thought, and the dinner was enjoyable. He also appeared to be really pleased with me. Even though he had been in several relationships, I had no idea that he had been harboring affections for Zara all these years. The problems began when the wedding was being planned. At the time, I didn't see it coming since I never imagined my own brother would do something like this. At first, it was minor infractions that might be explained by his general forgetfulness, such as failing to check in with the caterer or misjudging the time of the dress appointment. I now see that he purposefully caused a wedge between Zara and me in order to somehow call off the wedding. It didn't work. Even though we were both under a lot of stress, we were too resilient to be shaken by a few missed appointments. If anything, Zara's snippiness and short fuse with Jake simply made him feel worse. The wedding day was the last straw. Ruth and I hadn't communicated all this time. To be honest, I had no idea where she was, what she was doing, or how she was doing, and I had no interest in her. I had no idea that Jake had been communicating with her for months before the wedding. If nothing else worked, he intended to get Ruth to convince or pressure me into leaving Zara. He was hoping for some sort of intervention, like drama. Despite not being on the guest list, she arrived as Jake's companion. I was taken aback by this since we expected Jake's girlfriend to be present and everyone in the family had met her. I had a horrible feeling, but I didn't have time to ask him why Ruth was there. Fortunately, Ruth had not yet caught Zara's attention. Ruth got up and began yelling in front of everyone just before Zara was set to go down the aisle. She said that she was the love of my life, that she was willing to take me back, and that I didn't have to marry Zara. There was such a ruckus that Ruth began to weep and beat her feet like a spoiled kid. In all honesty, it was pitiful. Taking Jake by the collar, I rushed over to him and yelled at him to get out. He claimed that Zara and he were destined to be together and that Ruth and I were meant to be together, and that he had come to put things right. I was horrified by the ridiculous rubbish he continued to spew. I requested that my pals take him and Ruth out of there. Zara came out at this moment, and I'm not even sure if she understood what was going on, but she strolled calmly over to Ruth, blew her a kiss, slapped her in front of everyone and requested her bridesmaids to start the music. Never in my life have I witnessed anything so legendary. Ruth found it really humiliating, and rather than causing a controversy around me, she simply made a show of herself in front of everyone. Given the situation, the remainder of the wedding proceeded as smoothly as possible. I didn't hope for such a dramatic day, but there wasn't much I could do to change the course of events at that point. Immediately following the wedding, I blocked Jake. He had shown me plenty, and I had little interest in hearing his version of events. The fact that Zara and Jake had never even truly bonded made it all the more reprehensible and nasty. To be honest, he was dangerous to be around and possessed delusions. Above everything, I felt terrible for Violet, his lover. I called Violet a few days after the wedding to find out why she didn't go and why Jake didn't invite her as a guest. Before I chose to interfere in their relationship, I needed to know what type of story he had been telling her. She told me bluntly that I didn't have to act like I liked her and that she would much rather I just be honest with her. I quickly realized that Jake had prevented Zara from attending the wedding by using either Zara or me as an excuse. She urged me to stop acting when I questioned her about it, stating that Jake had already informed her that she wasn't invited, which is why he didn't receive a guest at the wedding. She claimed that she didn't mind him leaving or that we didn't like her, but she was really offended by the fact that the whole family acted as though they liked her when we actually didn't. I firmly informed her that Jake had deceived her and that none of that was real. I pleaded with her to keep our talk private from Jake and our parents for the next 2 weeks, and that Zara and I would meet her when we got back from our honeymoon. I had to provide her a picture of the invitation that was sent to Jake, which obviously contained a +1, because she claimed she wouldn't betray Jake on our behalf. I also validated her attendance with Jake by sending her screenshots of our chats. She claimed not to believe us, so I told her that I understood and that we weren't requesting her trust, but rather that she should remain silent until we could meet and address the misunderstanding. She consented, but I wasn't sure if she would follow through on it. I was eager to expose Violet Jake's true nature, but I could only hope that everything would go smoothly during my honeymoon. Update 1. I had no idea this story would become so well known. As I mentioned, I went on my honeymoon and didn't care to check Reddit, but my inbox is overflowing with requests for updates. Thankfully, nothing untoward occurred during the actual honeymoon. Jake didn't try to phone me, and he was still blocked. Violet texted Jake briefly to let him know that she hadn't discussed our chat and that she wanted to meet as soon as I got back from my honeymoon. A few hours had passed since the meeting. Violet didn't feel safe visiting our house, so we met at a cafe. At first, she was really protective and it was obvious from her demeanor and body language that she didn't want to hear what we had to say. However, we thoroughly explained everything to her. She first didn't believe us and called us crazy for making such a false accusation against Jake. I did, however, ask some acquaintances if they had any wedding films while we were on our vacation. Although there wasn't a single video that showed the full experience, other people were filming, so we were able to piece the incident together in general. After showing Violet those movies, I gave her the rundown on Ruth's entire predicament. At that point, she began to trust us. When she inquired about any past interactions between her and Jake, Zara adamantly denied it. It was difficult for Violet to accept that Jake would be so naive about everything, particularly if nothing was happening. Zara claimed to be equally perplexed. She didn't know how or when Jake fell in love with her, and she thought that she had fallen for him. They had only interacted for 10 or 12 times at most. We informed Violet that we believed it was our responsibility to notify her of the situation and that she might use the information however she saw fit. Additionally, We informed her that we had blocked Jake and would no longer be communicating with him, and we didn't anticipate this changing in the near future. She acknowledged that she could see our point of view, but she also stated that she wanted to speak with Jake right away. We made an effort to talk her out of it, but she felt that she owed it to herself to know if staying with Jake was wise, especially since she was pregnant. Zara and I both congratulated her on her pregnancy and assured her that we would always be there for her. Violet stated that although she was certain she wanted to move forward with the confrontation, she would have to reveal that we had contacted her and told her everything. Zara and I understood that supporting Violet was the correct thing to do, even though it wasn't ideal because we both wanted to avoid getting involved in Jake's turmoil. We assured her that she had our undivided attention and that we would stop at nothing to support her. I am aware that this is not the end, but that was the only thing that transpired during the meeting. For Jake, everything is about to explode up, and he has no idea what's going to happen. Update 2. Although I am aware that this update will be released shortly, this situation has gotten out of hand. I hate accidentally starting this storm, and Jake is going to take a serious hit. Violet wasted no time in getting right to the point after speaking with us. She asked Jake if he was at work when she called him. She stormed over to his office at that precise moment and confronted him after he said yes. It became ugly. She asked if he had done the things we had told her about and walked right into his office, which she was given permission to enter because she had told them she was dropping off some files for him. Violet wouldn't have it when Jake tried to explain that it wasn't the right place to talk and that they would talk about it when he got home. HR had to be summoned up to his floor because there was a good deal of shouting going on. This is where Jake's situation becomes even better. Or worse. Violet identified herself as Jake's girlfriend and revealed that she was pregnant when the HR assistant asked her who she was and why she was making such a fuss. She was shocked when Jake denied it. He categorically denied dating her. More shouting followed, and Violet was finally led away. That day a storm awaited Jake as he returned home. I don't know the specifics, but they got into a huge fight. I do know that it was discovered that Jake had been having an affair with Violet for a considerable amount of time, and that the lady he was having an affair with was the HR assistant who had stepped in to break the news. Jake is therefore doomed. Violet is a no-nonsense woman who doesn't put up with disrespect, therefore I'm positive that she will leave him. It is nearly impossible for her to forgive Jake and condone cheating. Jake's workplace has an extremely stringent no-dating policy about his affair partner. Employees are forced to sign contracts and other documents. His affair partner, let's call her Jane, found out that Jake had been pretending to be a single man and that he had a pregnant girlfriend after the altercation and Violet's tirade at work. When Jane discovered that Jake had been lying to her the entire time and that she was the other lady, she was horrified. Word spread quickly, and Jake is currently facing criticism at work for his actions. Jake is in a lot of trouble because Jane has ties to the company's executives, which makes things worse for him. He will undoubtedly lose Violet, and he may lose his job. Jake has nowhere to go because Violet has also evicted him from the house, which turns out to have been Violet's grandmother's. In the middle of the night, Jake came to see us and gave me an explanation of everything. For some reason, I let him in. Never in my life have I witnessed him so enraged. He would not stop yelling that Zara would one day leave me for him, that I had destroyed his life, and that I never deserved someone like her. I was genuinely concerned for his mental health because of how insane he sounded. He requires assistance, possibly from a psychiatrist or a therapist. Jake also became aggressive with me. I'm aware that I'll be called a fool for not calling the police on him, but ultimately, he's my brother, and I didn't want to add to his troubles. More than anything, I felt sorry for him. It's incomprehensible how one foolish choice can ruin someone's life. He had it all, a fantastic profession, a devoted and caring fiancé, and now a baby on the way, but he blew it all away with a series of foolish choices while living in a bubble of bizarre illusions. Right now, I simply feel bad for him. Update 3. Jake was laid off. Even while this is not shocking, I still feel horrible. Violet no longer wants to interact with him after their breakup. Violet has the full support of Zara, me, and my parents. Jake now believes that because of a harmless prank, I have alienated the entire family. Yes, he is now claiming that his pledge of unwavering love was a hoax. He has been totally shunned by the family, and no one is believing this new story of his. This drama has been annoying me. And I'm not sure where he's residing at the moment. As a recent bride, I can't keep rushing around cleaning up Jake's mess. I'm happy that I brought Violet into this in the first place, but I never imagined things would get so out of control. I don't see how Jake can get over this. It's a complete mess. I don't blame my parents for being upset with him because he threw everything away and was essentially a jerk. I don't know how he came to be this way. We weren't brought up this way. This will be my final update though. Zara and I have come to the conclusion that we must move on from this. Violet and our niece or nephew will always have a home with us and we will support them in any manner they require. We're done though, other than that. I appreciate all of the advice, Reddit. I never imagined that I would have my own dysfunctional story to tell, but that is what it is. Lab partner mocks me for being short, so I brought a measuring tape to set the record straight. Now he's embarrassed and denying everything. Original post. I am a 5'1" female and my lab partner constantly makes fun of me for being short. For example, I came back from the bathroom and he said, "I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny." He also said that my hair is so big it makes my head and me look even more tiny. I am not insecure about my height nor does making fun of it offend me, but it's annoying and ironic because he's short too, looks 5'6". And yes, I know it might be because he's interested in me, but I don't find him attractive, so the teasing isn't cute, it's just very annoying. Last lab I had enough of it and basically told him to shut up because he's like 5'5". He said he's not 5'5" and he's 5'9". I know I am very short, but he is definitely not over 5'7". We started arguing about it, so I told him I'll bring a measuring tape next class and we'll find out the truth. I started to feel a bit bad after because I know men are very insecure about their height. However, him obviously lying about his height and constantly making fun of me makes me in the mood to be petty. Will bringing the measuring tape make me an asshole? Edit. I accidentally put F22 in my title, for my lab partner. To correct myself, I am female 20 and my lab partner that makes fun of me is male 22. More explanation as to what he says. Editor's note, fix the title of the Boru for clarity. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. NTA, he's finally found someone shorter than him and it makes him feel superior. If he can't take it, he shouldn't dish it out. OP, do you think me bringing the measuring tape will make me the asshole? Commenter. NTA. Bring in the measuring tape and a big, black Sharpie. Don't say a word to him. Go to the door frame and mark 4, 5s and 6. Between the 5 and 6 foot marks, place the inches. Remember how parents used to measure kids' heights against the wall for the door frame and leave marks for little Susie is so tall on October 31st and Ben is so tall on the same date. Don't say another word to him, just leave the measuring marks so he has to look at them every day as he passes by the chart. Keep direct eye contact with him whenever he walks by it. OP. I'm rolling with laughter. Thank you for this idea. I'm definitely going to do this. I was planning on just measuring him, but the marks on the wall would be more accurate. I don't know if I would be allowed to draw on the wall with a Sharpie though. I may do it with a washable marker instead. Commenter. NTA, he shouldn't dish it if he can't take it, but I don't know that it'd help to escalate with the tape if you'll still need to work with him. Can you switch partners? OOP, no, I can't switch my partner. This is my assigned partner for the rest of the semester. Thankfully I only have 3 classes left. Commenter, downvoted. He's definitely trying to flirt with you, IMO. He wants to emphasize how small you are because it makes him feel bigger and he's probably not used to that, LOL. He wants to make it clear that compared to him you're just cute and small. He's obviously insecure about his own height. I do think being short has wildly different implications for men and women, but it's not like you decided to do this after he made an offhand comment. You're clearly annoyed by this and he's being disruptive and kind of desperate by not shutting the fuck up about it. Measuring tape might be the exact tool you need to show him why this kind of shit is very bad for him, LOL. OP. I think so too, which is why I was hesitant to say anything. I didn't want to make him more insecure. I don't think he means it in a harmful way, but it's just annoying because he mentions it every single lab. However, last class he kept making inappropriate comments about our other lab partner and I getting married and having babies. That really crossed the line for me. I gave him a death stare and told him to stop in all seriousness, because the comments he was making were just making things awkward and uncomfortable. He chose not to listen and keep going thinking he was funny. After that I lost all respect for him. Commenter, haha. I had a guy worked with once who insisted he was 5'8". I literally said we're the exact same height, and I'm 5'3". Dude had the audacity to say someone had lied to me because I was obviously 5'7" or so. NTA, don't let their fragile masculinity bother you. Measure that boy. OEUP, this is absolutely hilarious. This guy said the same thing, that I must be 5'5". So now I'm suddenly not short anymore, huh, El Mayo? The audacity of these men to lie by a whole 4 inches thinking people won't notice is just embarrassing. OOP adds a bit more from his bullying. I'll tell you what I told the other person who said the same thing. To clarify, he also said, I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny, when I got back because it took a while. He also said my hair is so big it makes my head and me look even more tiny. To add on, he repeatedly calls me shorty, Or brings up my race saying my people are usually short. When I try to ignore him, he just keeps repeating the same thing to annoy me and get a reaction. I love being short. So there's nothing to be sensitive about. It's him being annoying and making these comments to someone he barely knows, all the while he's also very short, that bothers me. Oh, and I'm bringing the tape. Update. Same post. Update. I got to class late because of traffic, so I didn't have time to tape it up. Also, there is no actual wall beside me, so nowhere I could really tape it. But I still measured him. I whipped my tape measure out and they started laughing at first because everyone knew what was about to go down. Before I measured him, he asked me what the margin of error was and said, "That thing is 2-3 inches off." We both knew he lied at this point, lol. But I insisted on measuring him, and at first he didn't want to get measured. I told him to take his shoes off and he said he didn't want to. I said I'm subtracting an inch from the measurement then. He was 5'7" with the shoes on, so without them he's actually a little less. Even after I clearly measured him, he kept denying it, saying it's wrong, that I measured him wrong and the tape measure is incorrect. He then looked up how tall is 67 inches, because he kept saying that must not be 5'7". I couldn't believe he kept denying it even though I clearly just measured him. His friend, in the lab group across from us, is about the same height as him and also lied about his height last time. So he was embarrassed too because they both were obviously lying. I made a joke about how the top 2 inches must be invisible and he wasn't too happy. Our lab TA 6'2" came over and asked what the measuring tape was for. I told him it was to measure his height, pointing to my lab partner. I said he lied and the TA started laughing too. Next week I'm thinking of just taping the measuring tape at the door before class so they're always reminded of it when they walk in. There's really nothing more I can do. We both know he lied even if he doesn't admit it. Editor's note. Marked as concluded since OOP hasn't updated and proved her point, everyone knows the kid was lying.